Welcome back to the Infinite Rabbit Hole. I'm your host, Jeremy. Today, we're going to dive into Elmwood, everybody. We're going to do it the old way. We're going to talk a little bit about the documentary that you guys just heard for the last 3 weeks of your lives. Thank you, by the way. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And we're going to discuss our own personal thoughts about it 1 week before we head on over to UFO days. We're actually recording this like 7 days or about a week before the end of June, so we're really early on this end. But by the time you guys hear this, we'll already be hot in pursuit of UFO days. It'll be 3 days away when you guys first hear this. Anyways, let's go ahead and bring in your host for the night, Jacob.
What's up, dude?
Nice hat, dude.
Thanks, man. It's someone's wife made these.
Yeah. Well, she didn't make them. She bought them. Don't give her that much credit.
Okay. Yes. Your wife bought these.
She did.
I'm digging it.
She opened up our bank account and bought them.
Well, you might not like them, but I do. Yeah, no, nothing much is going on. I mean, well, me and my wife finished building our chicken coop and kicked all the birds outside, so that was cool. And then we went trout fishing today, so that was nice.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
I finished my garden.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah, I did the thing.
Yeah. Now if we can get Jeff over here, we could combine our resources and have a pig farm or something.
Yeah. Contribute, sir. Speaking of Jeff, what's up, dude?
Sounds good. What's up, bro? Yeah, I went fishing today and caught some trout as well. Actually, it was pretty sick. That's it.
The spotted sea trout kind.
Yeah, man. Spotted sea
Yours
trout.
have teeth.
They do have teeth, and they will bite you. They are little sneaky ones. Caught a couple of those.
Yeah. All right. Elmwood. So you guys, I'm pretty sure you guys listened to the entire series today. Binge listened as tradition, right?
Yep. No, actually. I listened to one of them today. I listened to the other one 100,000 times already. And to be honest with you, the third episode, nothing is stuck from the third episode because it's just been.
There's a lot of information.
It's a lot of shit going on today.
Do you want to start with your project there, man? Do you want to let everybody know what you're working on?
Yeah, I'm trying to make these. Well, hopefully by the time they start listening to them, they'll be able to watch them as well. And I don't just mean like pull it up on YouTube and listen to it, but like there's going to be some video attached to this audio series. So, hopefully they'll be getting better as we move forward.
So Jeff's working on the very first iteration of an Infinite Rabbit Hole documentary in the video format, and it's gonna be great. I sat down with my wife and my kids and we watched it, and honestly, I think this is the first time my wife ever looked at me with pride. I was like,
I believe it.
I was like, you might do something with this, and like. I had to look at her and be like, well, Jeff did it. And she was like, yeah, Jeff might do things.
Well, this is the thought that I had. And I said this to my girlfriend as well. It's like, we had that conversation the other day on the Reality Czars podcast. And then like I started doing the video and then I was like, there's actually something here. Like you could make something of this series, make a decent enough of a video. And that could be a stepping stone or a platform to get eyes or even to use that as a pitch to get some, something going. So,
So we got to do a little bit of future reading here, just because the first episode hasn't released yet at the time that we're recording this. But I'm predicting that somebody's going to ask me. Maybe multiple people will ask me, what is Chronicles? And I vaguely went over it in episode 1 or Elmwood 1. And the gist of Chronicles is that Infinite Rabbit Hole will be bringing continuous coverage of a specific subject. So anything that we do Elmwood wise would technically fall underneath the Chronicles name. Chronicles 1 or whatever we end up going with, UFOs over Elmwood is the running title that we're using as of right now. Will be a continual project. It's not something that we're just going to end here with these 4 episodes, the 3 documentary episodes, and then this one conversation piece. This will be continual. So you'll get more content after the UFO Days Festival. You'll get more content as we get people to come forward and tell us some more of their stories. You'll get more content when Jake and I get off our lazy asses and go over to Elmwood. And
whoa! I am not
I mean
lazy.
my lazy
Yes,
ass.
there you go.
Whenever Jake gets off my lazy ass, and and we head on over to Elmwood and we do a little bit of street work over there, like on the corner with our best fishnets on. Yeah.
Here.
So once
I'm
once
excited for some man on the street action. That's gonna be fun.
I mean, that's how, if you're gonna find anything about a small town's UFO story, you're
gotta
gonna
get
find it on
abducted.
the corner. Yep.
Yep.
You have to, and it has to be any form of abduction. They don't specifically say that it has to be from an alien craft. It could be anything. So,
Go out there and
fishnets
start
on
showing
the
my
corner.
legs. Yeah.
Yeah. How else would you do it? I mean, honestly.
I mean, that's it. That's
All right.
abductions
Yeah.
101.
So we'll start off with Elmwood 1, right? Elmwood 1 was an episode where I kind of went over all the smaller events. This was kind of a precursor to the real stuff. Not saying that these weren't important at all. But they were much smaller, much less covered. When I was doing the research for this, we were given a binder from Amy, and the binder was the town of Elmwood's collection of all the newspaper clippings and magazine articles and posters and flyers with anything to do with either UFO Days, the festival, or their history of UFO events. And so I was lucky enough to be able to get my own copy of that binder. Very, very excited to have that in my possession. And basically going through a couple decades worth of information in that binder, these were the events that weren't part of the Carol Forster or George Wheeler topics, right? This was everything else. There was a couple big ones in there. Let's there was the one where the son and the father pulled over on the side of the street and got out of their car, watched as this craft hovered directly over them, which was a pretty impressive one. Then you had the very first one in 1956, where I think it was 6 or 7 different vehicles pulled over on the side of the road on County Road P and watched as an orange glowing orb floated past them about 20 feet off the ground. Big one, a big orb. I think an orb would probably be the wrong way to describe that. But nevertheless, there was a lot to unpack here, because not only was there a handful of events, they spanned decades. Like I said, the first one was in 56, and I think we went all the way up to 88. And unfortunately, we don't have anything else in the binder past, I think August of 88 was the last entry, or the newest event.
So is there just no more sightings?
No, from what I understand from Amy, is that it's ongoing. There is one person in that town. Well, it's not just one person, but there's one person in that town that has a really, really good set of stories, but they are very reluctant to be able to talk to anybody. Apparently, they had a bad episode with a news crew who made everybody look like idiots.
Mhm.
And the town is very, very reluctant to come forward and tell their story because they don't want to be made to look like fools again.
Well, this is like this is what I was thinking that whole first episode, you know, because there were so many sightings, and then like it just kind of seems like it stops, right? Or they stop keeping track, or are they stopping telling everybody else?
So I need
You
to
know what I
make it
mean?
over to the library and talk to the lady in the library. I've been told that she is somebody that I need to go talk to
Makes sense.
because apparently there are other articles that aren't in the binder. Apparently, there's either a second binder or a section of the library that's dedicated to more modern sightings, and that we need to get our asses over there and go take a look at that. So that is on the to-do list. That's why the Chronicles will be ongoing, because as we discover more and more information, we'll be sure to pass it on. But yeah, it is ongoing.
All right. Well, we're gonna have to find some people when we're there, I guess, and
Well, that's
hopefully we can. I mean, if we're not showing up with a news van and like a suit and tie situation, maybe they'll actually talk to us. You know,
why I was trying to get you that collared shirt. Whatever.
I don't
Want to
wear
make you
collared
look
shirts.
like class,
Listen,
bro.
the people of Elmwood who are listening, I don't even wear collared shirts, man. I'm a regular
You're,
guy, man. You could
you're
talk
lucky
to me.
he's gonna wear a shirt.
It's all good, man. We're cool.
This guy spent a whole year of his life without shoes.
I did. That's a fact. That is a fact, man.
Dirty hippies.
One of
Yeah.
us. One of us.
Manja.
Um,
In the very first one, I recognized or I realized that there was a tremendous amount of people that have never seen a helicopter at night.
that is yeah. Yeah.
Especially even the ones that are like, it definitely wasn't a helicopter. It'd be like, okay, well, you saw red and green lights and a searchlight. That's a helicopter, you know?
Yeah.
or a small plane that's coming in for landing if there was an airport nearby. I was like, obviously there's some people that saw different things, but an awful lot of people had never seen a helicopter before.
Well,
And I was
Jake,
like, huh.
the first thing I thought about, and I'm hoping that when Amy does listen to these episodes, she's going to remember that conversation that we had with her, or you specifically had with her, when we were checking out that abandoned house there on a property that was that supposedly was extremely popular for a lot of stuff. And honestly, Jake and I were pleasantly surprised to find out that there may even be a Big Feets in the woods surrounding Elmwood as well. So there may be a little bit more other than UFOs to talk about from this town. But Jake, you had a conversation with her about a silent H60. I don't know if it was a Sierra, but
Blackhawk.
yeah.
So the one where I don't mean that there's like super secret vehicles for the government flying over Elmwood, but I just mean in general. I mean, seeing them from far off, or in this circumstance, it was the SEAL who popped bin Laden was talking about in a podcast that they flew in using some super stealth Blackhawks that even Obama, who was the president at the time, had never seen before. And the pilots who flew them, they were familiar with H-60s and they were familiar with Blackhawks. So they snatched them up and they were supposed to fly these things. And the pilots had never seen them before either. And so they were giving, in the Situation Room, they were giving Obama the debrief saying we're 99% sure that bin Laden is here in this compound because his I want to say his son or his nephew is in there, and he's like his last line of defense wherever he goes. Bin Laden goes to, and that they gave the briefing to Obama, and then he's like, all right, is there anything else? And they said, yeah, so these are the vehicles we're going to be using. And the pilots, like I said, and Obama had never seen these vehicles before. They were some super duper stealth Blackhawks. And if you've ever worked with helicopters, you know how loud they are. You know, I don't know how you could, stealth the engine noise, the rotor, noise, the chopping and the chirping as it goes through, right? The sound of the blades cutting through the air and stuff. And if there's like a riffle in the leading edge tape on the blades, it'll make a chirping sound. It's really obnoxious, but that when they got into the compound, that the people inside of it, the terrorists inside, didn't even know that they were there until they breached the doors. And so these were like super, super stealthy. And now I don't mean to suggest that those are flying over Elmwood and places around there. And like, I think there was one where it was like a report that came from Bay City, which I actually work in. So I just mean that there's a lot of people, it seems that, and I guess we're fortunate being, prior military at the very least, that we, worked on helicopters, but knowing that, yeah, they have red and green lights. Yeah, they have, searchlights and all kinds of stuff. And even to the extent that they don't have to fly with lights, they can fly all lights off and the pilots can wear nods or NVGs, right? They don't have to have lights on. But they usually do, right? So, but yeah, I was like listening. Obviously, there was some people that saw something completely different, right? Or seeing a bunch of burn marks on the ground and stuff like that. I mean, that's completely different, obviously. But then there was a lot of people that were like, yeah, and it definitely wasn't a helicopter. It's like, well, in my opinion, this was a helicopter. You said that a couple times because it's like, I don't know if that's people lying to jump on the hype of the string of sightings, or that's just people that, like I said, have never seen that before, and they at least at night, and they're just like, what's this? I see a helicopter at night and be like, oh, look, a ghetto bird, they're probably looking for someone.
I think that the time, just like that time period, there was a lot of things going on that not only the military, because here's one thing I thought about too, right? We're always looking for like, is there a military base nearby, right? Is there an airport nearby, right? But nobody's ever thinking like, hey, is there like a Lockheed Martin nearby? Is there a Raytheon nearby? Like, doesn't necessarily have to be like an airstrip or something like, and especially like any time frame 60s through the 80s, right? They were definitely developing some like super advanced stuff in that time frame. So it's possible that they were flying over these less populated areas and doing random tests. And the test could have been as simple as, hey, look, we're over this random small town. Like, let's see if we can just like track a vehicle, like go track that vehicle. Right. And then they'll track the vehicle for a few minutes and they'll be like, all right, cool. Yeah, that worked. And then they, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
that's kind of what I'm thinking.
There was that one event where the woman described it as having one bright light, two red flashing lights, and it sounded like a helicopter.
Sure. There was definitely helicopters. You know what I mean? I'm with that. But there were some that, and you could say there's the other thing about the sound, right? Like depending on how the wind is going, like you'd be surprised how little you can hear something. And I don't know necessarily about helicopter. I haven't been that close to too many helicopters in my life, but there's times where like a rocket goes off here at NASA and I can't hear it at all. And then there's other times where a rocket goes off and like the whole house shakes. I'm like, why is that? And I think about it and I'm like, I wonder if like the wind and all that has something to do with it. Because I know the wind can obscure sound waves, so.
Sure.
So Jake and I, we met in the Navy in a helicopter squadron, specifically the H-60s, H-60 Sierras. And one thing that if you work in aviation at all, navigation lights, right? And there's specific colored lights that
it goes
on
for
the
boats
aircraft.
too. Boats.
No, it does. It
night.
does.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah. So just for pure educational purposes, right? You have the green light on the starboard side, or if you're
side.
in if you're at the point of the pilot, it's your right side, and then the red light on your left side, and then you have a white tail light, and then oftentimes the way that helicopters, or at least the Sierras, were where that they have the big spotlight up at the nose.
Mhm.
And when I'm listening or I'm reading through these articles and I'm listening, I'm trying to picture the description. Most of the ones that I'm picturing that are not the orange ball, right? Because
Mhm.
we'll get into that a little bit after we talk about the helicopter stuff. But the stuff that wasn't the orange ball, there's a really good argument for most of these to be helicopters. Um, I don't know. And like what Jake was saying, those they can go lights out, right?
Mhm.
And then they have the what are they, infrared, right? The green lights.
Yeah.
So you can't see them without NVGs or infrared goggles or any kind of like FLIR systems.
Right.
But basically, these things will glow green um, when the craft is going dark, and this is another way for you to be able to tell what the craft is, what direction it's flying in by the positions of these lights. And honestly, if you were to just look at a helicopter and not know where these lights are, you probably couldn't find them because they're flush and they're incredibly difficult to spot if you don't know what you're looking for.
I'm not gonna lie, dude, and maybe these pictures are not real. I just Google searched like stealth helicopters. These things are
Yeah,
sick, bro. Like,
I'd have to look.
A lot of it's
go
AI.
subscribe to the Infinite Rabbit Hole so that we can get us a stealth helicopter.
Yeah, let's get a infinite rabbit hole
Apparently, if you want
helicopter.
to, you can buy a Black Hawk on military auctions and stuff like that. I watched a
A
YouTuber do it.
Stealth one? Well,
Well,
someday we'll get a
probably not
stealth
a
one,
stealth
right?
one right now. Not right now, but
These are all fake as fuck, bro.
Yeah,
These don't
right.
exist.
Whatever. Give me any of them
well,
though. I don't care.
not just that, but you got to figure there's a tremendous amount of people around here that own small puddle jumper prop planes.
Yeah,
Actually, one of
yeah.
my coworkers, he's working on his pilot's license. His dad owns a prop plane, and he puts YouTube videos up all the time of him flying that. He flies on his ultralight and stuff, right? Just a parachute with like he basically sits on a fan and he just goes. But um, if you want to talk about noise not being a factor, a small prop plane that has nav lights, and if they're coming in for landing or they're flying low, they also have big spotlights on them. So you're not dealing with the jet engine noise, right? Because even helicopters have small, little compact jet engines. Obviously, they don't, go into full AB and all that stuff. It's a little bit different, but you wouldn't have that noise. You'd have the hum of the prop, and that's about it. So if we were to look at that and be like, I've seen plenty of like rural landing strips where it's just in the middle of a massive field, there's just a strip of concrete or a strip of dirt. Like that could be it too. People are seeing, airplanes coming in for landing. They just see flashing lights and a spotlight, and they hear a hum or a buzz, that would be a
Yeah.
Yeah,
propeller,
especially
right?
if you're like in a farm area, right?
Oh,
You've got
yeah.
farmland.
Crop dusters.
And
Yeah,
here's the
prop
other thing
dusters
too,
too.
right? Is like I don't want to discount people's experiences, right? Like obviously
Sure.
they're seeing something, right? Now I'm sure there's somebody out there who's like full of shit, right? Well, like, what's the percentage? I don't know. At least 1%. But people are seeing shit. So
Sure.
but yeah, in a farming area, of course you're gonna have people flying their own planes in and out. Some of them aren't going to be registered in any kind of way. It's just, especially in that time period, people are just going to have shit.
Right.
What are you going to do?
And then the last light to talk about would be the anti-collision lights or the smack lights, and they're just depending on whether you're day or night, they're flashing white or red. And usually, well, not usually, I think it's federal law now that you have to have one on the top and the bottom of the aircraft. Usually, one on the tail and one on the belly. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jake. I'm not 100% sure if it's federally regulated to have two now, but I know one has to be there.
I'm
I
thinking
think it
about our
depends
plane.
if it's at night. I think there has to be two, but if it's if it's daytime, I think the tail one is the only one that has to technically
I don't know
be.
about helicopters. I'm thinking about our plane right now that I work on, and the smack lights are on the wings.
Really?
and there's one on the top of the tail. There's not one on the belly.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, they smack lights. One thing that a lot of people don't know too, if you just have a very elementary knowledge of aviation, the flicker of the smack light, the
Strobe. Yeah.
the strobe, the the regularity at which it goes and the pattern in which it goes will tell you what aircraft it is. So, like the H-60s have a very specific doop 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 kind of
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, it sounds funny. Uh, pattern to it, and then when I worked on E2s, it was a 3 with a pause and then a fourth one, right? Very specific to it. They also do that for the landing lights too, the carrier landing lights on some of the planes.
Now that being
Anyways,
said, though, with such a high presence for aircraft, now it could either be good or bad. Or it could be either a good or bad spot to test out new, like Jeff was saying, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman,
yeah,
whatever type technology, low population, bunch of farmers, because let's be honest, it's a bunch of farmers. I no longer would consider this a flyover area, considering I've quite enjoyed the area, but some people could. Now that being said, I mean, there's better places to test it, like in the middle of the Mojave Desert where there's literally nothing. But if that was the case, I have to harken back to the SR-71 Blackbird. That thing was in development for 30 years before they dropped it. Or say the F-35s; those things were in development for 25 years. Then it was basically things like, hey, we got to know if we, do a hard bank, going 9 Gs, is it going to crack the airframe in half? It wasn't anything really nefarious as far as I know. Or maybe it was, hey, can we, spot this person brushing his teeth through his bathroom window from, from 20,000 feet, with our FLIR? Who knows? But, but still, it was a lot of testing and a lot of development. And if you don't want your enemies and your adversaries to know what you have, you're going to test those things in very unpopulated areas. And so that could be it too. And shoot, I mean, you guys know how I feel about aliens and stuff, but I guess it could be that. But I more so lean towards that, maybe not necessarily the government. Like, I think Jeff and I see eye to eye on this. It's not necessarily the government. It's all those black op projects and black budget projects, all those contractors that you put out a FOIA request to the government and they're going to be like, yeah, sorry, we don't know anything. And because it's all Raytheon, it's all Northrop Grumman, it's all, whatever that's not attached to the federal government. And that's why, when you get things like the F-35s, I had a buddy when I was converting from a power plants mechanic into an avionics technician. He was getting orders to the F-35s, and the first 2 years he spent there, he couldn't even touch them because it was all the contractors from the company who made them. Whenever they'd come in with a gripe or something for avionics or whatever it was, they would work on it. And they were basically training these guys, but they couldn't do anything about it. So even the federal government, even though they paid for these aircraft, they paid for the publications to fix the aircraft, they were still under contract and under warranty essentially, and they weren't even allowed to touch them because truthfully, the federal government doesn't own any of this stuff. It's owned by these companies that make these things. And so they don't
it's not
have,
even it's not even them. It's like shell companies under shell companies under
sure.
them.
Yep.
Because it's like, this manufacturer made the plane, but who made the engines? Who made the windows? Who made the whatever, right? The hydraulics, systems, things like that.
So, moving on past that, right? Because we're already 30 minutes into this episode. Moving into the things to me that do sound like real unidentified craft, and I think this is a perfect segue into episode 2. Although there were plenty of these also mentioned in episode 1, but episode 2, where we specifically talked about the Carol Forster and the Officer George Wheeler encounters with orange craft. Now these are the descriptions on these are completely different.
Right.
I from what you hear about this orange glowing like craft that is commonly seen around Elmwood or in the Pierce County Triangle. This sounds like something that's very interesting, especially when it comes to these 3 encounters. So we'll start off with the Carol Forster encounter, and we're hoping very, very much that we may or may not have somebody potentially able to clarify a lot of this story, as well as very very forgot how to fucking English today.
Words and things.
Yeah, who may be able to bring us into some more of the modern stuff, who is intimately tied to this specific encounter. I'm not going to go ahead and put names out there because I don't mean any disrespect, and I don't want to, ruin any chance that we might possibly have. So we'll go ahead and leave that person anonymous. But if that person is listening, just know that we really would love to hear your stories. But moving on, what did you guys think of the Carol Forrester encounter?
I just want to make sure I don't have my stories mixed up because there was a lot of stories. This is the one that was like the 2 bowls shaped like the 2 bowls. Was it or like 2?
So both her and Officer Wheeler made a description very similar to each other, with hers and Officer Wheeler's second encounter, where it looked like 2 cereal bowls. The way Wheeler put it was that they were back to back or side to side or whatnot, where I believe Carol Forrester did make the description of 2 bowls on top of each other. But to kind of brush up some memories on the Carol Forrester encounter, is that this is the one where she was with her 3 children in her car, being chased by this orange glowing craft.
Oh yeah.
And she pulled into the driveway after this thing kind of moved in front of her. She reversed out back into the driveway, where she went into the Weber house,
the neighbor's driveway, basically. Right?
Yeah, basically the neighbor.
Mhm.
They came out. They all saw it. Carol felt better, so she got back in the car with her kids, started going back home, and then this thing landed on the road in front of her. And then she went back to the driveway. And this is where
I carry a gun for this specific reason.
this is
Pop
where
shot at it.
Mr. Weber jumped in his truck and escorted her back to her house. And then those 2, as like the little caravan that they had created, also was being chased by this thing by only a few car lengths behind. And as Carol got home, she was able to watch it through, I believe it was her kitchen window with her husband when he got home, before it finally left. But yeah,
So wait,
this was
did
an
the other
absolutely
guy
incredible
did
story.
the other guy hang out until the husband got home?
No, I don't think so. I don't know.
Whatever happened to him?
I don't know.
We never
But
found
he
out, right?
there's plenty of articles in the binder where they do talk to him. They talk to, because the house was owned by his mother at the time. It was owned by his mother. They were living there, and they had teenage kids at the time. There is 1 or 2 articles where he is describing it and telling you his point of view, which matches up with Carol's story. So the real impressive thing about this particular story, and actually this and the Weber and the Wheeler stories, were that there was multiple witnesses that basically vouch for what
Mhm.
the main witness was saying, right? So Carol, as the main witness, explains all of this stuff, and she even went on to the Geraldo show and
It's
told her story
Geraldo.
there. Is it Geraldo?
It's Geraldo.
Well, I fucked that up.
Yeah,
So
you did.
look at me.
We were laughing at
He's
Anyways,
you while I was
still on
editing the video.
TV. You could literally look him up, and then when they talk to him, you could be like, "Oh,
should I
that's
re-record that? Maybe I'll just
No,
record
no,
it.
I
I don't know.
already did the video and everything over, bro. We just
Nope.
we all laughed together with you. It's all
just
good.
have a
Geraldo.
dub and be like Geraldo."
We're talking
Never
about
never said
we're talking about it
Geraldo.
now. People aren't going to know what we're talking about. You
Yeah.
gotta
Yeah.
leave it.
So Geraldo, no, so she went on the show, and many other articles in the binder, and I mean you can go online and Google the Carol Forster encounter and find quotes from her about that night. And gosh, I think his name was Robert Weber. I could be messing that up. I'm just gonna call him Mr. Weber out of respect because I can't remember his first name. But their stories align, and Weber's teenage kids, one of them was also quoted in an article saying practically the same thing. So there was definitely something in the sky. It was fucking with them that night. It was coming in and out of above the tree lines over the fields, coming onto the road, chasing them, fucking with them, and then backing off whenever she would go back to the Weber household. And it's just, I don't know, man, it's super strange, and it just, nothing about it really reminds me of a known aircraft. I mean, the movements, I guess, could be mimicked by a helicopter, but there was so many things about it that just doesn't say helicopter.
I don't think
Well,
that there's any question that there's things that we don't like. I think we all agree that there's
yeah.
other craft.
I
But the
mean,
question is just like where are they coming from? Right? Is it ours? Is it not ours? Is it
Mhm.
right.
aliens? Is it interdimensionals? Is it China? Who is it? That's the real question.
And we have all these like TikTok videos or Tic Tac videos and things like that showing that
Yeah.
these things have existed for a very long time or have been. I don't mean existed in the sense that like the aliens have been here for a very long time. I mean like projects like this have been in place for a very long time. Um, so yeah, I mean her seeing something that was completely different or like two bowls stacked on top of each other or whatever it is. I mean, it I mean, yeah.
Right. Like that's
I
what I think
agree.
when I hear a weird thing. I'm like, sure, okay. Like
Yeah.
they've got some other weird physics that they're playing with, and they're able to do something else, and it's like, to me, like that's the more interesting part of it all is just trying to figure out like what exactly is this,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Which honestly we'll never know. I
'Cause, like
don't think we'll ever know.
because dude gets blasted with a blue laser beam or something. So it's like,
Yeah. It lights up the whole interior of the car and stuff.
Yeah, so let's we'll move right into Wheeler's encounters then, because that's what you're referring to. The first one, um, it's a pretty big event, right? This is a police officer, ex military pilot,
Mm-hmm.
highway New York State highway patrolman. He's supposed to be a reputable source, so you got to there's some people out there that would be like, well, none of that means reputable to me. I mean,
Yeah,
uh,
sure.
but when you look at how many other people were also reporting the same thing, right? And that's what's
Mm-hmm.
most impressive about the second one, or the first Wheeler encounter, was that all of the other reports that were coming in that night were all describing the same thing. And they didn't have anything to do with Officer Wheeler that night. These were completely separate people from different areas, different locations or in the area that had nothing to do with George Wheeler, and he didn't conversate with any of these people. These were already being reported into dispatch, into radio shows, to the sheriff's department, and I don't know. I find that very compelling, especially when you tie that Officer Wheeler was describing something so similar to Carol Forrester, and this only happened a few months apart from each other. I don't know. Personally, I think that this whole orange glowing ball thing in Elmwood is extremely intriguing.
This is why I'm so excited to like go and actually interview people and talk about
Yeah.
their experiences. Certainly, we're going to get some people that are kind of just like riding the hype, but like I don't know. I'm just stoked for it to hear it from their firsthand accounts of what they saw and stuff and break it down. Because certainly there are some people that saw some weird stuff. You know, I put those sorts of people in high regard. People that are in law enforcement or military type personnel. As far as like, now I'm not saying that I didn't work with any people that were compulsive liars, because I certainly did in my time in the military.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, they're pretty straight arrows, and they do hardcore jobs, and they're hardcore people, and they don't BS you. And you get someone that left military service, goes, oh, excuse me. Ooh, I need to mute that. Sorry. Leaves military service, goes into the police force, and then sees something weird, especially having a pilot's background. Yeah, it's like you probably know when you're seeing something that's strange, right?
Mhm.
You're at that rate, you know, you've seen it all, right? You've seen
Mhm.
the worst of humanity, the best of humanity. You've seen all different types of vehicles that we might have at the current moment that are available to like military wise, available to be utilized for operations and things like that. Now I don't know exactly what sort of a pilot he was, but you know, generally they have really high clearances too, especially if they're doing, you know, operations and stuff. So yeah, I mean, I put more credit into him, unfortunately, you know, just the bias, right? Than random people throughout the city saying, hey, I saw this, that, and the other. But if his story is lining up with other people's stories, and that gives them credibility as well. And that's kind of how my brain works, and that's kind of how my bias works. So clearly something was seen, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I listened to him all a couple times, but it was a lot of information. He ended up dying like just under a year later, correct?
That was after the second encounter.
Right, because he got radiated. Or he
Yeah,
had a heart
well,
attack.
he got hit by that blue light. We'll talk about that one a little bit more in depth here in a minute
Okay.
after we move on from the first his first encounter. Jeff, you look like you had something to say, man.
No, I'm kind of just looking up some stuff right now. I'm trying to think. Like, I was just looking up what kind of military contractors and defense contractors and aerospace contractors there are in Wisconsin. There's a lot. I don't know how many were there then, but I'm sure at least a few. So
Yeah. But yeah, so just to kind of give you guys listening a scope for this, I don't know how much I highlighted this in the episode, but the Forster encounter happened March 2nd of 1975, and George Wheeler's first encounter happened April 6th of 1975. So just slightly over a month later, uh, pretty much the same aircraft or a craft being described similarly is being spotted, except for the one fact that George Wheeler described this thing is about the size of a football field.
That's big.
That's big. But then you look back at some of the smaller stories, and there's that one specific one where this big giant orange ball was coming up over the horizon, and 4 other white ones just spread out from it, and then did their own things at weird angles and weird speeds, and then they came back and were then engulfed back into and that's something that you hear quite a bit through a lot of American UFO stories and encounters. You hear a lot about lights splitting apart and coming back together.
Shoot, I filmed one.
Yeah, you did. You're right. You did film one.
They didn't come back together, but they spread apart.
Yeah, it was pretty neat. We should put that on TikTok. But anyway, we should. I mean, this could be an international phenomenon as well, but I'm not too familiar with some of the international stuff. So anybody listening outside the U.S., I do apologize if this is also something that shows up for you. Blame my ignorance.
He's got a lot of it.
I have a ton of it. Geraldo. I'm gonna re-record that.
Shaking his head.
Anyways, Elmwood 3. No, let's go to George Wheeler's second encounter. This was so Jake and I, when we went and had our personal tour with Amy, the very first place that she did bring us was to the quarry where George Wheeler had this encounter. And basically, to describe this, right, you go up a hill, and right when the hill is about to flatten out, just before that, you can go into this dirt road driveway sort of thing right next to where the quarry is. And it's got a fence and everything, but there's a nice sign there that commemorates the George Wheeler and multiple other sightings that happened in that same area. One thing you'll learn, in time, once we get more stories, for what we have heard that wasn't recorded in these articles, was that there is a lot to do with this quarry.
They're coming for the minerals, dude.
Yeah, and that's something that has been brought up in private conversations with Amy multiple times, because I believe that she actually lives near a different quarry. I could be completely wrong. It could be the same one. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it's a different one where her house is. But Jake and I did go and see this quarry, so we were able to kind of, I wouldn't say retrace Officer Wheeler's encounter, because honestly, at the time that we did go see this, we didn't know anything about the happenings at Elmwood. We knew that there was something. We didn't know the stories behind it. We went there, and honestly, I wish I had known the stories, because I would have looked more at it and try to pick out things like the alfalfa field. I thought that would have been something interesting to look for. But if he was where we were at, we basically parked right off the road, right into the entryway of this quarry. And if he's sitting there and he sees this giant orange thing hovering over in the short distance, Jake, there's nothing but sky there, man. I mean,
you see everything.
You have a good view of what's going on. I mean, it's not like you're not going to be looking through trees, and you're not going to be like, what is that, squinting your eyes. I mean, this is going to be right there, right in front of you, broad nighttime, and very, very easily spotted, and probably extremely easy or extremely simple to point out the details, as he did in this encounter. And that was like one of the big details that stuck out to me in this second encounter, was the amount of details that he was able to reiterate. Now, you got to understand, the first time that kind of caught him off guard, right? He did give us some details as to what it was. The second time, he's more ready, right?
Right.
This happened let's see, from April 6, 1975 to April 22nd, 1976. So a little bit over a year and a half a month after this took place. So, you know, he's very well informed of the stories that happened in Elmwood. He had his own first encounter at this time, and this time he pulls up, spots this thing in the sky, and is able to basically take in everything that he's seeing and pass on, for a little while at least, the description of what he's seeing to Gail Hilmer, the dispatcher that night.
Mhm.
So pretty interesting stuff.
Is there recordings of that?
You know, man, I don't know, but that is going to be something that we may find out when we go to the library.
You need to. Do you have a notepad
Like
of
right now?
yeah, like things to get when we get there? Okay.
I should write those
Recording.
down.
Yeah, recording of that would be one of them for sure.
That would be pretty cool to
Because
add
it would,
into some
if that
content.
happened in 2024, there would definitely be a recording of it, right? Because they have
Right.
all these, you know. But
Yeah, even if they did have recording, I doubt it would be digital. Highly doubt.
I mean, and then here's another thing, right? Well, I guess we'll talk more about the rads. He got ratted out, but
You
Geiger
think so?
counter. Yeah, we need that.
No, do you think he did get hit with some radiation?
He got hit with something, man. I mean, must have, right? And it,
Right.
well, I mean, here's the thing: you could probably find out if it was radiated. You could, if you know where the spot is, you could take some device over there, and we could do some testing and see if there's any heightened whatever.
Yeah, but that'd be extremely residual by now.
Perhaps.
Probably even to the point where non-existent.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm not a scientist.
No, I mean this is definitely stuff that we should be asking about when we get our toes wet in the.
Right.
All
Did
right,
anybody do
Geiger
it?
counter. I got a Geiger counter. It'll be here on Tuesday.
Did you really?
Look at that.
Yep.
See how serious we are in the Infinite Rabbit Hole, everybody.
See?
Yep.
Super serial.
I always said, man, they just need to give me a job at the boardroom where they're like making movies or coming up with ideas for stuff. Just pay me like $100,000 a year to just come up with ideas, bro. I got you.
There's somebody in the government that literally gets paid to come up with ideas to try to fool
Hey,
the population.
Give
That
me
could be
that
a
job. I could do it.
fucking shill.
I could do it.
But yeah, this is another one where there was multiple people who either witnessed him or witnessed the craft, because there was that gentleman who lived right next to the quarry who looked out his window and was able to tell Gail Hilmer, the dispatcher that night, exactly what he was seeing, and what he described was basically spot on with what Officer Wheeler was describing before everything went dead. Now there are multiple articles in my binder that I think his last name was Friedrichsen, right here, where he was the main person being interviewed. So to have him give his description and how that collaborates with George Wheeler's, and how close the descriptions that they both had together, it's very impressive. It's just these three events I really think make Elmwood. They're just absolutely incredible. They're huge. They're descriptive. They have multiple eyes, and they're intense. And it's just all three of them alone are really impressive encounters. But then when you just look at them bundled together in the nice little package that they're in, and then you add the details of all the other little accounts that collaborate with them from other points of view around the area, from people calling in and reporting their own sightings that match up to what the Wheelers were looking at, or what George Wheeler was looking at, from, you know, places such as 5 miles away, 30 minutes afterwards or 10 minutes afterwards.
Mhm.
Somebody calling the sheriff's department saying what they're seeing and how that looks almost exactly like what George Wheeler has seen. So I don't know, man. It's
Do we know if
there's a lot of,
anybody who has seen it in any of these stories is still around?
yes.
Put
That's
that in the
what
notebook.
we're trying.
Notebook.
We're trying.
Okay.
Okay.
No, it's an active try.
It is an
Got it.
active try.
All right.
Yeah.
So, and Jeff, you may learn more about that when you're here. So, episode 3.
Mysterious.
Sorry, I just don't want to ruin any chance that we possibly could have, you know. So, episode 3.
I
This was-
want a UFO landing pad in the center of town.
Yeah.
Start a new petition, just to say we have it.
Well, there was that one lady who went and made one out of pebbles out of her garden and the Mississippi River on her property.
Listen, you could pitch that as a tourist attraction, and you might be able to swing something.
That's originally what Tom Weber had in mind. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say that I know what he was thinking. He sure came off as he wanted to build this as a place for UFOs to land and alien beings to come and conversate or integrate with humanity. But the mayor at the time definitely saw this as a tourism opportunity. One of the slogans or sayings that was very popular, or that he was known for saying at the time, was, you know, a scenario based saying where if someone asked you where Madison was, and they'll be like, "Oh, it's just a couple hours south of Elmwood." You know, as kind of a joke of putting Elmwood on the map and making it a bigger place in Wisconsin than Madison is. And I think that's what the real goal was here with the UFO landing spot. I mean, you think back, this is back in 88, right? $50 million in 88 was just ungodly money. That's a lot of fucking money back then, man. You know, in fact,
How much Quikrete is that for a 100 by 100 foot square?
How much Quikrete is that?
We'll do it
I
ourselves.
have no idea.
Put a big info rabbit hole logo on it.
You're right. Let's see. $50 million in 1988 would be worth, holy crap, $132 million, $905,545.93.
Man,
so that's why we need subscribers. That's why we need to leave reviews.
This is the reason why it didn't work out, because that's a big ask, man. That, you know, you don't.
That's a huge ask.
You don't need that in Elmwood, Wisconsin, for a UFO landing pad tourist attraction. You do not need that much. You know, you could get away with maybe like $5 million, or probably get you a nice little setup. You know, you could draw some eyes to.
Well, he only ended up pulling in $20K, is what he said.
That's because he's asking too much.
Well, there's a lot of there's a lot of people that were upset with him because he ended up funding his own UFO research organization in Chippewa Falls, and he created this this group of people who would always get together and start planning things. And you know, and some of the things that I found, there was people pointing fingers at him saying that he was paying his friends with the money to sit at a table and talk about UFOs.
That happens.
Is this organization still around?
No, it's not.
Are any of the people still around from the organization?
I don't know. That's a good question. We could look into that.
Notebook.
I was able to get a couple of their names. I put it in the presentation, but I was able to get a few of their names. So I mean, it wouldn't be too hard to look up and see if any of these people are still around. Maybe even family members are still around. But yeah, the landing pad. I don't know. Elmwood is a very, very small town.
Mm-hmm.
It's got, I think, back in '88 when this was happening, they had 981 people there. And right now I'm Googling their population is right now at 811. So it went down by over 100 people since 1988. So it's it went down 6 people since 2010. So there's not a lot going on out there. Jake and I, when we went out there to see Amy for the first time, we went downtown. There's a couple bars, a couple smaller restaurants, the library, a couple businesses. There's a really
See, this is
awesome
why
butchery
it's so
place.
interesting to me, because it's like, there's not, you don't hear. I mean, dude, we've been doing this show, and I've been doing this show with you guys now for how many years? At least 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, and I've never heard of this up until a couple months ago when we started talking about Elmwood. So there's no shows, there's no documentaries, there's nothing that I know about except for what basically I've heard from you. So
And the funniest thing about this, the whole thing, I've never heard of Elmwood before I moved here. Not once have I ever heard of it.
and you're the guy. And then the other thing is that, just, I mean, we all know, right? Like the Pentagon and everything came out, and over the last like 2 years, they've been dropping a lot of shit that's basically saying like, hey man, there's stuff going on. There is stuff happening. Right. Now that
And
could be a psyop. We all get that, but let's just assume it's not. That there definitely is some shit going on.
so I think that there's a reason why this binder ends in 88. And I think that, just speculating here, and the reason why I added the CIA portion to this presentation at the end of episode 1 was because I wanted to instill that there was government eyes on Elmwood. The Project Aquarius, when they were first starting out with the exercising the seers or the watchers or lookers or
Right.
whatever their description is. We'll go over that in another episode here, actually very soon. Pretty sure that Project Aquarius, when they were spotting the Soviet subs off of different coastlines around the world, when they were practicing bunny ear quotes, right, trying to find the Soviet subs from inside a lead cased room in Washington D.C., the people who were actually looking for them, the people who were doing the remote viewing, spotted a lot of UFOs over nuclear sublocations, right over the water, in the middle of fucking nowhere out in the ocean. I think that I think that they use this to kind of as a secondary mission, or maybe even the real primary mission. Who fucking knows?
Right.
But I really think that they saw something over Elmwood. I
just
think
had
that
an
they were looking
interesting
at Elmwood.
thought, man.
What's up?
Sorry, I didn't mean to just like
No,
blow
you're
into
good.
your shit. What if, just a what if here? What if when you do something like a remote viewing, you are causing the anomaly that people are seeing?
As like a drone, like a camera drone.
If that makes sense, right? Like, let's say I'm here, I do remote viewing, and I'm trying to see something, and maybe I see you in my remote viewing.
Like you have to
Whatever.
manifest a physical object
Maybe
to
you don't
be your
have
eyes.
to. maybe that's what happens. Maybe because there's some connection, it just causes this weird anomaly that nobody can really put their hands on. And I'm not saying all the craft, right? Because obviously people have seen like metallic spherical craft when they've said that, but
I'm
some
going to
of
be
these
honest with
weird
you.
ones.
I don't think so at all. And that's because I'm not crazy.
Oh,
But
right.
I'm just kidding, dude. I don't know. Maybe I don't think so. It just doesn't. That's not something that's within my wheelhouse. I'm pretty sure if we had CJ on right now, he'd probably eat that up right away.
I got a
I just
problem.
don't. What's up?
My thing just switched from my mic to my my my
Oh,
audio just switched
yeah.
from my mic to my
I,
webcam,
I I did get a notification that you started a new track somehow. I don't know
and I
how you did
can't
it.
turn it back.
All right. Well, we're just have to finish off this episode like this. It's not that big a deal, man.
Sounds
I'll
good.
clean it up. I'll make it sound good. Yeah, it still sounds good on my end too.
That's good.
But I do think that there was something in the skies over Elmwood. I think that the government knew about it. I think that the government put a hush order down because if you look at all the media attention that Elmwood was getting in 88, 88 is a big year, right?
Mhm.
88 is when the Geraldo or Geraldo, who however you pronounce it, you know, uh, you talk about that episode, you talk about Dan Rather, you're talking about multiple uh, publications, both national and local. Tom Weber
And
came out
the
and said that,
NASA scientists.
yeah, the NASA scientists, the UFO panel
Yeah.
from which we will eventually talk about more in a later episode. Actually, a very soon, possibly the very next episode after this one, we'll be talking about UFO programs in the government. But you talk, you had Tom Weber talking about the landing site, which brought all the attention, and then all of a sudden, it seemed like literally months after, a year, 2 years tops, everything just shuts down. There's
Mhm.
no more fucking information, like at all. So we know that the CIA was there, right? The
Yep.
NASA scientists, quote unquote, were there, or the NASA engineers were there, that were actually from the UFO panel. Um, I think that there's definitely something going on over Elmwood. I think that we have great documentation for it. I think that it got too big in '88. The government shut that shit down and put a gag order on a lot of people, possibly even some threats out there. Said, "Shut your fucking mouths.
It's a
There's nothing
psyop.
going on here." And I think that's kind of your answer, Jeff, from earlier about why is it that there's nothing recent. And I think that we're far enough away from '88 now to where if people came forward, they wouldn't be under that same threat. So I think we have a good chance at bringing this back into the limelight, especially with all the acceptance that's going on with UFOs right now and all the government entities coming forward about UFOs and being comfortable talking about it. I think this is a really good chance for Elmwood to push into the forefront of the UFO talk in the United States, if not the world. Honestly, because I really do think that there could be something here.
I agree.
Good.
Well, be there soon.
Yeah.
Check it out. Talk to
I
some
don't know,
people.
man. It's just my thought because the same thing came to my mind, Jeff, is why isn't this out there? Why are people not talking about Elmwood? Because I've kind of done a carousel of different shows and was been a guest on some shows recently, probably about 10 to 12 of them right so far, where I'm talking about Elmwood and nobody knows about it. Nobody's heard of Elmwood, and it's weird. It's definitely weird.
Mm-hmm.
But you guys got anything else?
No, man. I mean, I'm excited to get up there. When will this be out? This will be out a week before I'm there. Is that
This will be out.
whenever
Yes.
it is? I'm excited to get there.
Yeah. This will be out.
Jake,
Let's
what are we
see.
barbecuing, dude? What are we eating, man?
Pork shoulders.
Oh yeah, I like the sound of that, bud.
Pork
I'll be
shoulders,
ready.
maybe some ribs.
Keep the conversation going for a second, boys.
Depends on how long I'm. Depends on how long we're at the place. Maybe some
Probably be
tri-tip.
there.
Tri-tip would be nice.
Yeah, that would be good. Probably be there all
Tri-tip.
day, I
Then you
imagine.
can do some fried potatoes.
Especially if we're setting up a booth and a table and stuff. Like, we're going to have to get there early. We'll be there the whole time. We'll be there at the end, breaking it down, you know. And if we're lucky, hopefully we're able to talk to some people. And that might include having to talk after the event, you know. I can't imagine that some of these people would want to talk to us, like, at an event around of a bunch of people, you know. So,
Well, that's the whole purpose of trying to be professional with this documentary and coming out so clean with it and being neutral in a lot of the topics that were being talked about. You know, we don't want to come off as being assholes. We don't want to come off as going in there trying to make money off of their story. We want to come into their world and accent it and make it better. You know,
Yeah.
we want to come in and we want to respect their story. We want to respect their privacy. We want to respect who they are, but at the same time, we want to bring their story to the public. And
yeah. Just for the record, you know, I'm excited, but there's no money in this for any of us. So
no,
don't get the wrong idea. But no, it's exciting because, you know, like I said, I've heard, or I feel like I've heard every UFO story, right? Especially knowing you. It's like this thing where it's just like, oh, we're doing another UFO story, you know, and it's like, oh, 4,000 people have broke down this story. All right, it's still cool, but, you know, nothing really new or anything like that. But this is just like a whole set of just new shit. It's just like, oh, like,
yeah,
what?
this is that new.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
just like, holy shit, you know? And then, like I said, if there's people that are still around, it's like you can actually get firsthand information, you know?
Right. We're
Yeah.
never
It's
going to
like-
get firsthand information on the Nazi bell.
Yeah, like, you know,
It's just like,
hey,
there's no way.
and it's cool getting the information off like the Discovery Channel or whatever, but it's like, how many editors' hands has that gone through or whatever? It's like, no,
Right.
I'd like to just sit down with Frank and just talk to Frank for, you know, an hour and just like pick his brain and be like, yo, what happened, man? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Nope. And that's the opportunity that we have, and it just happens to be 30 minutes away from where Jake and I settled down. And it's honestly a coincidence. It really is. I did not move to this area knowing that Elmwood was here. I didn't know about the stories. I didn't know anything. I mean, I knew honestly the closest thing here that I thought that we would have a chance to go and research was the Beast of Bray Road, and that's hours away. Maybe Rhinelander, where the Hodag is.
Don't you have a lake
But
monster near you too?
honestly, man, I didn't know about that till I moved here either. so it's
So
you
maybe
know,
it's a synchronicity and not a coincidence.
maybe. I know some people that would call this a synchronicity. I'm more
Jeff
of a
would.
coincidence kind of guy. But yeah,
I don't really believe in coincidences, to be honest with you, but
no.
Same.
I don't know. I've recently had some things come up where I may be in the same boat, but I've always been a coincidence kind of guy. Anyways,
'Cause you're a fool.
I guess the last bit to really talk about is the UFO Days Festival, and we got to make it quick. We only got about 8 minutes. Yeah.
What can we expect, Jeremy? What can we expect at this UFO Days festival, man?
Yeah,
Well,
Jeremy.
I have been told that we are going to be giving the official story of Elmwood to the people, the patrons of UFO Days.
Wait,
we will be.
We're giving the official story. dudes who aren't
Yep.
from there are giving the official story.
Yep.
Giving that up to it.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Amy
Alright.
is the president of the festival, and the person who typically does it has not gotten in touch with her this year. So I threw our name out there, and I sent her a copy of the documentaries, and she said, "Yeah, you guys can have it." I said, "All right,
Nice.
cool."
I hear there's going to
So,
be another podcast there too. Are we going to have a knife fight or what?
well, no, that's what the wrestling ring is there for.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny. You sent me the flyer for the wrestling ring. I was like, that's sick.
Yeah, man. There's gonna be wrestling there. There's gonna be UFO burgers. There's gonna be
Are they made out of real
vendors.
alien?
Maybe
Man.
there's gonna be parades. There's gonna be all kinds of cool shit there. This little small town in western Wisconsin is gonna come alive for 3 days, the 26th, 27th, and 28th of July. That's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I know we've been saying this quite a bit, but you'll see both myself, Jake, and Jeff, not both, but all of us,
Mm.
at the UFO Days festivals all 3 days. We have spots to talk at 2:30 on Friday and Sunday at the auditorium. So please come on by. One of those, it may be both of them, who knows, is going to be us presenting the story of Elmwood to the people who want to hear it. And like I said at the end of the last 2 episodes on the documentary series, that if you can come to the booth and tell us what the title is of our 100th episode, we'll give you guys some stickers, and we'll give some any kids in your group some temporary tattoos.
Mhm.
But other than that, I really don't have much to say, guys.
When Jeremy
Jake and I put the booth together.
When Jeremy said both of us, he was talking about himself and his ego.
That's right. Jake and I put the booth together the other day.
Yeah.
It looked pretty good. Everything looks good. We did a dry run.
We might have a 8-foot tall Sasquatch cutout that y'all can put pictures in front of if you're interested.
Yeah. We gotta give him a name. We should have a name the Bigfoot contest.
Don't I fly in on Friday?
I thought you better fly in on Thursday. If you fly in on Friday, you're not gonna get there.
I think I fly in on Friday, bud.
That sucks to suck, man. You're gonna have to walk from Minneapolis.
Oh man.
All right. Well, that's all we got, guys. You guys good with that?
Yep.
All right. Well, travelers, it's been a pleasure. I hope you guys enjoyed our very first iteration of our Chronicle series. Who knows what the next topic is and how long it's going to take to be able to pop up where we can dedicate some real time and effort into a topic to classify it as a Chronicles series. But for now, we have Elmwood, and we'll continue to have Elmwood for quite a while. Until next time, travelers, we'll see you in the next fork of the path of the infinite rabbit hole. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.